All right, all right, all right, all right. How's everybody doing today? Welcome to Timber Talk, Navigating the Political Forest. I am your host, American Lumberjack, aka Frankie, and we are about to navigate truth. We're about to navigate reality. We are about to navigate the things that they don't want you to know about, the things they won't tell you per se. It's going to be a good show today. I'm actually very, very, very excited about today's show for the simple fact that I get to share it with you guys. I appreciate you guys so much, man. You have no clue. I'm trying to make sure what is going on with my dual output here. I don't know why it looks weird over on one side. It's probably because I didn't select the right settings, but that's okay because we are here and it's less showy today and more telly. But as always, let's jump right into it with prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, God, we thank you for today. We thank you for blessing us for blessing us with truth, with reality, and with love, grace, and mercy, Lord, that we are undeserving of. Lord, we ask that you just continue to bless us to grow in you so that we can grow closer to breaking away from the system that has us bound, Father. And I pray this over everyone who is under the sound of my voice. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right, guys. Like I said, we got a story for you today. We have a story for you today. Several stories, in fact. And we're covering some things that a lot of people might feel offended about, things that might excite people. But regardless, we're covering them in truth and not based off of opinion. Now, when I do give my opinion, I will separate the opinion from the show, but you will know. Our first part of the show today is foreign academics. Now, Trump has been doing a lot of things with foreign policy, with the border, and things in between. And we see a lot of people are up in arms about that, right? Well, they're going to be up in arms about this. Foreign academics is about being transparent and truthful and not allowing people to misuse and abuse the system, as it were. A lot of people try to misuse the system in many ways, and it just doesn't pan out how it should be. Should pan out. Give me 1 second. Let's see here. Output. I don't think I'm able to change that mid-show. Hmm. Well, you guys are just going to have to go watch somewhere else on Instagram. I apologize. I can't fix that mid-show. I wish I could, but unfortunately I can't. Well, the Trump administration is making a huge change with the student visa system. Not just any other, the largest component to visa overstays and or illegal immigration in totality, really. But he's really cracking down on these student visas, and this is one of the biggest changes in decades. For years, foreign exchange students have been able to come over to America and remain in America under student visas, where they just keep changing majors or changing degrees or adding to, and thusly allowing them to extend their stay indefinitely. Well, that's changing. That policy is no longer going to be as it was. Going forward, the most international students will be limited to 4 years and 4 years only, and that won't change anytime soon, because Trump's just simply speaking facts. We have these people that abuse our system and find loopholes in our system, and we just keep letting them do it. And then ultimately, when someone says it's time for you to go, it's like, well, I've been here 30 years. Yeah, that in itself is a problem. You've been here 30 years and you never went through the proper process or anything of the sort to make it to where you are a legal citizen of this great country that you want to stay in. And that brings me to the fact that a lot of people say, oh, America's not that great. America's not that great. If it's not so great, why do people try to get in illegally? People don't steal worthless things. They don't. They only steal things of value, whether it's valuable to them or someone else. It's of value, or it can make them something of value in return. So the same can be said is people don't come illegally or break the laws to remain here if this was not the greatest country on the planet. So these kids that want to stay will have to ask federal government for permission now. That's plain and simple. The new rule also limits how easily students can change majors. Transferring from one major to the next or changing anything in between, they're going to have to be clear and concise up front as far as how they are going to basically move forward in the future. And I think that also should apply to American students, right? I believe that should apply to American students as well, because a lot of American students are very unclear on what they want to do, where they want to go, how they want to be. And I think if we're going to hold these foreigners to this standard, we should hold our own to this standard, because this is actually a good standard, because you're forcing them to actually come to terms with, hey, this is what I want to do. This is the way I want to go and how I'm going to move forward in the future. But they don't get to transfer into different academic programs. They have to know what they want up front. And if they want to attempt to extend their studies beyond the 4-year window, they have to get permission. So the Department of Homeland Security says that this is about tightening the system. And officials say that they want better vetting, because if you haven't been paying attention to this show, because I believe I am the only one that gives it to you when it happens, and that's not me being biased. That's the work of my team. My team is absolutely fantastic. They stay in the trenches digging stuff up. But they find things like how foreign exchange students from China, if you guys, again, have been paying attention, have been selling secrets back to China. And they get to remain in America while doing business for China. And it doesn't pop up as a story until it affects national security. Well, the problem here is it's affecting everyday life, because that is a place someone else could be taking in that position that student's holding, when all they're really doing is sitting in that position just so they can collect information, or maybe just remain here because they don't like the way their country was. And the problem with that is, if you want to be here because America is the greatest country on the planet, then go through the process. I believe that the Trump administration is trying to work on making it easier for the process for people who actually want to be here, but also making it more difficult for those that want to abuse the system. And that's what this is. It's closing the loopholes. With fewer loopholes, stronger immigration enforcement, and making sure that student visas are being used exactly for what they're supposed to be used for, you actually shore up everything that is important for America. It will actually make people that want to be here for the right reasons come here for the right reasons. The enemy won't be able to make loopholes in the system if you close them constantly. And I think that's where we fail in America as a whole, is that we constantly push for this border security and shoring up our border and all this other stuff, but we get complacent after a while. And then Congress goes on to make laws that create loopholes, because we know that they create loopholes for themselves, right? But they go on to create these laws that make loopholes in the system, and then the enemy exploits them. So if you have someone that is conscientious of the system and conscientious of what's going on and constantly making efforts to change and close these loopholes, you don't have these problems anymore. And this is what the student visa system has been. It's been an open-ended way to remain in the United States indefinitely. Now, there are some exceptions with this particular situation coming from the Department of Homeland Security. Students in the program that are legitimately required, they're legitimately required, requiring more than 4 years, that is, such as a doctoral research or a certain professional degree, they can still request for the extensions without issue. And they don't have to go through a bunch of hoops and stuff like that, because they are able to be seen doing the work. Not someone that's, oh, I don't know, I want to be a basket weaver this month, and then next month I want to be a doctorate in lectures, and then next week after that I want to be able to be a finger painter and then a underwater basket weaver. You know, these people are serious about what they're coming here for. So that pathway for them, there's an exception allowed for those people. Not to do it the American way of doing it, where you change your major 111 times and then you fail out because you're on academic probation or something like that. That's no longer an option for these people, and it never should have been in the first place. So instead of receiving that flexibility automatically, how it used to be, they'll have to earn federal approval. And I don't see a problem with this. I really don't, because it doesn't directly affect us in a negative way, but it does affect them and forces them to actually do what they're coming here to do as a student. And this is how pretty much every other single country, you guys think that the Trump administration is getting all of these ideas out of Trump's head. No, they're looking at how other nations do it. And then they're saying, hey, if they're doing it this way and it's successful, why can't we apply those same approaches here? It's going to be a noticeable shift once this takes place. And they're looking to roll this out as early as this September. So the bigger picture overall is with this story is it's not really about college. It's about immigration. And every nation has to answer a basic question. Why are people being allowed to enter the country? I know people that travel abroad all the time, and they have to go through strenuous, rigorous programs just to make sure they're not coming for a reason that's nefarious. Even people that do business visas in, say, Japan or France, they could be returning. They're back, and they have to continuously go through the same thing. Why? Because these people say, we're not going to get lazy on how we do things, because when we get complacent or lazy, that's when you start taking advantage of the system. And they don't allow it. So why should America allow these same things to happen here? The Trump administration has made its position very clear from the start. A student visa is for studying, nothing more. Not for to come here to get a girlfriend or a boyfriend and get married and live off the government or anything like that. It's for studying. Supporters of this say that this protects the integrity of the immigration system and creates more accountability and gives the government better oversight. These are things that the government are actually supposed to be governing over. Not us. They were put there to make things better for us, not to govern over us, right? They were supposed to make sure the states didn't overstep. So why are we so upset? Because the critics argue, it adds another layer of bureaucracy, especially for those legitimate students who programs naturally take longer than 4 years. No, it doesn't. It holds those people accountable. How many people start a program and then drop out of that program and move to another one? Or just drop out and do electives? You don't know. You should look it up. The number is quite interesting. And it's even more staggering when you look at it through the lens of foreign exchange students who do it. Not everybody has a clear-cut pathway, but making it to where these people have to have a clear-cut pathway out the gate is essential. It's essential. And if you don't think that, then are you really American? Can you call yourself American? So I don't see anything wrong with this. I really don't. There's nothing negligible about this. It's just essentially accountability. And speaking of accountability, for years, the Americans have asked the same question about Congress. If lawmakers can influence the market, should they be allowed to profit from it? And I'm going to go ahead and give my opinion out the gate. No, they shouldn't be able to profit from it. The fact that they profit from it in the first place is a problem. Well, the House may just take a huge step in making its first real step towards answering that question. This segment's called Nancy Pelosi. Now, after years of public frustration, the House has passed legislation aimed at restricting stock trading by members of Congress. Now, I'm going to let this sink in. I'm going to let this sink in. I really am curious to know what you guys think about forcing Congress to give up stock trading. How do you guys feel about stock trading from Congress? Do you think they do insider trading? Or do you think they are legitimate? Do you think they move the right way? Well, Congress has put forth a bill that's called Stop Insider Trading Act, or SITA, S-I-T-A for short. If it becomes law, members of Congress, their spouses, and their dependent children, keywords dependent children, which I think they should add all family members, immediate family members, not just dependent, because dependent could be worked around. Because non-dependent children could still receive information just like everybody else, right? But they would no longer be allowed to buy, sell, or sell individual stocks while they're in office. Lawmakers would still be allowed to keep their investments they already owned prior to entering office, but if they decide to sell, they're not making it easy. So this is kind of sort of a good thing, right? They would if they were to push the ideology of selling, they would have to give the public at least 7 days notice before making the transition and transaction of selling their investments. Now this right here, this part right here is beautiful, because you know how people are like, oh, Trump's telling everybody what's going on in the stocks and he's doing insider trading. Well, if he's telling you, it's not on the inside. It's not on the inside. Insider trading is how Nancy Pelosi got her riches. And that's not me spinning up a story. That's true. Her and her husband have benefited greatly from insider trading. Hell, that's how Martha Stewart went to prison, right? That's how Martha Stewart went to prison, because of insider trading. So why are these people allowed to do insider trading and make millions while we are not? So this little key portion of this legislation says, hey, you have to give 7 days notice before you sell. Do you understand the damper that puts on the potentiality of insider trading? Massive implications. But there are still loopholes. Because what if they have a non-dependent child? And that child becomes the executor of their estate or their mutual fund, which coincidentally, they're allowed to have still mutual funds and certain trusts. The problem here with those being left out is that you could have someone else make the moves for you while you're still in. And if this legislation passes and becomes law, I would say you need to pay very, very, very close attention to how they move, what they shift their stocks and their bonds and their trust into. Because if they're making big moves, that means that they're still doing the same thing, just in a different house. So the legislation in the House did pass by a vote of 232 to 198, with the support mostly from the Republicans. We knew this. We knew this. We know that for a fact the Democrats benefit the most from it because they are the richest party, right? Just because the Republicans are the ones that are currently in control does not mean that they are richer than the Democrats. By all means, don't get it confused. They are rich as well, just not as rich. So a small group of Democrats did also come across the aisle in joining with this. This is a beautiful thing. I don't understand why anyone would vote against, and I do understand, but I'm saying it in the perspective of, I don't understand why, if you call yourself a representative of the people of the United States, a trustee of the people of the United States, why would you not overwhelmingly pass this in the House? This should have had a vote of I believe it's 432 right now, 431, because they're missing some representatives right now because some stepped down and some stepped away for health purposes. So it's like, but if all 535 members of 435 in the House, 100 in the Senate, but it should go all the way across the board. Everybody votes for this. Everybody votes for this. And the ones that are not voting for this are telling you, hey, we don't want you to know about our dealings. We don't want you to know about how we make money on the side, how we go in making $174,000 a year and roll out like an Autobot with $200-300 million. We don't want you to know that. We don't want you to understand that. We want to keep doing business as usual. That's what they're telling you to your face. But again, not every bill is perfect because they always have some type of loophole, which they could make these things ironclad, right? The deal, and like I was saying earlier, the bill doesn't require lawmakers to liquidate their investments they already have. Instead, it focuses on preventing future trades while they're serving in Congress. Certain investments would also be exempt, like I was saying, with the mutual funds and the diversified portfolios. I can't speak today for whatever reason. Along with qualifying trust-held assets, which trust is a different animal, right? You put things in trust so you nor anyone else can really mess with it, right? And when I say mess with it, I mean harm it, take it, twist it, turn it. Trust actually is a protection method. That's actually what your Congress is supposed to be doing for you, being trustees and representatives. Yet they are trustees for themselves and representing themselves, not the people that put them there. Since those investments, however, aren't already tied to performance of a single company, they will be allowed to keep those things. My problem with this is that it's not ironclad enough for me. I see it as a beautiful beginning, a beautiful start. Do I think it'll pass the Senate? Probably not. Probably not. I don't think it will. And I do need to go look back at the initial vote, because for those that don't understand, there are always two votes in the House and in the Senate. There's a vote to be heard and then a vote to pass, right? So we have 198 people voting no to the final vote to pass. But how many people are voting no to the vote to be heard? Because that's the real telling story. Those are the people that are outstanding, saying, hey, we stand on business from beginning to end, whether it's good or bad, we stand on it, right? So I would be very interested in knowing who voted where and for what overall, because that's what really matters. It tells you the true story. And what may cause this bill to fail, because there's a caveat here, little twister here. They attached voter ID to this. Yeah, they're expanding the conversation beyond stock trading by attaching voter ID requirements. From the SAVE Act, Congress has tied this together to form a super bill, essentially, and basically wrap up two separate debates all into one. Now, y'all know how I feel about non-single issue bills. If it can't, the problem here is they want to roll all of these bills up into one, and because people don't read, things get passed. Kind of like the banning of TikTok was rolled up into a budgeting bill, and you watched Congress, and this is why I said you got to watch Congress. You watched them make slick little moves by buying Meta stock, and when that bill passed, they made lots of money, lots and lots of money. And again, back then, I was telling you, when that happened, vote every single person, Republican and Democrat, out that voted for that legislation, because they knew what they were doing. Vote every single Republican and Democrat out that had stock in Meta, whether they knew what was going to happen or not, whether they voted no or not. I would have needed to see if they voted no at the hearing of these bills, not the no vote of the passing, because anybody can say, no, I don't want this to pass, because they already know it's going to pass. They saw it previous in the hearing of the bill, right? So they're tying these two bills together. And again, you know how I feel about this. It makes it very, very difficult. Give me 1 second. Having a little bit of technical difficulties. Uno momento, por favor. Let's see here. I don't know why things don't want to work today. Everything wants to be difficult, but we don't mind difficult, do we? We just keep rolling with the punches. But overall, what we're seeing here is that they don't really care. And they try to slip things in. But the difference between the Republicans and the Democrats with this is, man, the Democrats will put 40 different pieces of legislation into one bill and make it 5,000 pages. The Republicans are like, hey, let's put 3 pieces of legislation in this one bill, thinking that nobody's going to read it because it's only like 100 pages. So the two are not equal in their dealings. They're not equal at all in their dealings. But I'm pressed against multi-issue bills because we lose insight on what is actually needing to be heard or seen or talked about. Like, how many bills did the Democrats try to pass for veterans and stuff like that, which had very little to do with veterans and everything to do with what they wanted to pass and the agendas they wanted to pass? So I'm against that. But I am for this bill as a whole because we do need to shore up voter ID. We do. But the problem is not in the House for this. It's in the Senate. It's in the Senate. But when it comes down to insider trading, the debate has been building for years. Every time Congress considers legislation affecting a major industry, questions inevitably follow, right? Should lawmakers be allowed to trade stocks in companies that could be directly affected by laws that they are proposing? This is why we, in the ground level here, say, hey, we can see what you're doing. This company asks you to make a bill, and you slide in there and say, well, I don't know if I can do that. That doesn't seem right. And they slide a Mickey in your pocket and say, here's next to your next campaign. Here's $100 million we're donating, right? And okay, yes, hey, we need this legislation passed tomorrow. We need it passed yesterday because they're going to pay me. And they do this to several different legislators, and then you see these bills get passed. This is why everybody says that corporations are controlling our government. This is why I'm against lobbying. So even if no laws are broken, many Americans believe the appearance of conflict of interest can be just as damaging as actual laws being broken, right? That's why proposals like this continue to receive very little bipartisan attention. While it seems big in this instance here in the House, which it is, yay, But when it gets to the Senate, what are they going to say? I feel like, personally, and this is my opinion, that they have sabotaged this bill on its face. While it has passed the House, I don't think it'll pass the Senate, and they know it. Kind of like those hearing votes versus the passing votes. They know it's not going to pass because we see the Senate stall out on the SAVE Act multiple times. They rather do doggy parades than the SAVE Act, correct? So what's really being done here? If this bill doesn't pass, are they going to work as hard as they have with Section 219 out of the NDAA to get it back on the floor to be heard again under a new bill? Or are they going to amend it? You know, which bills get amended all the time. Legislation gets amended all the time. Are they going to amend this legislation to remove the SAVE Act aspect from it and just make it about no insider trading? Probably not. But they've worked very hard at getting, you know, the NDAA passed, at least the Section 219 of merging the two militaries. And it's crazy because that in itself, off topic here, that in itself is not even a American ideal. I have proof, which I can show and make videos of for you guys, where Benjamin Netanyahu is thanking congressional members for pushing this merger, pushing this partnership, because we don't want aid anymore. We want a partnership. Because when you become partners, you merge your ideologies. So why are we not working as hard to push legislation that's actually for America? Because if you're doing insider trading, that means you're making money off of our taxpayer dollars because you're passing legislation on the dime of the taxpayers, and you're making money off of those who invest, which are taxpayers. The difference is you're doing so with your pockets being filled by the companies that are asking you to make legislation for them. And that in itself is a conflict of interest. It is a conflict of interest, and it always will be. But for some reason, people allow you to get that and slide on it. They really do. Our next story here, however, is a little less serious and a lot more funny. And it's called, oh, wrong one. Why is that up there? There we go. Tariffs up in smoke. The wildfire smoke is back. And we know every single year the West Coast catches on fire because they don't know how. They're all about health and air quality and against, you know, fossil fuels and oil and save the environment. They're all for that, but for whatever reason, their forests catch on fire every single year. And you would think that someone that's so earth conscious that they would do their due diligence to make sure they do proper underbrush burning so their forests don't catch on fire, right? Well, when it comes to this wildfire smoke being back, this time it isn't just Canada sending smoke into the United States. America is sending its smoke north as well. So large wildfires are burning in Washington State and in Oregon, and they have pushed heavy, copious amounts of smoke into British Columbia, which, if you know geography, it's right above it, right? You know, right above it. And it's prompting Canadian officials to issue air quality warnings across parts of the province, right? Saying, hey, guys, be careful. You're going to get sick or pass out or, you know, asthma or whatever reasoning they're issuing it for. They're saying, hey, you need to be aware. But at the same time, Canada continues battling hundreds of wildfires on its own, and they're sending smoke south into several United states, right? And it's becoming a problem, and it really is. I talked to friends that live in New York and Pennsylvania and New Jersey and the northern states, and they're saying, hey, we have never seen it like this before. This is crazy. We don't know what to do. And it's every single day it's an air quality control issue. And everybody's saying, hey, stay inside as much as possible. Don't go outside as much as possible. It's become a real problem for the United States. And neither country can escape this. They could if they did what they were supposed to, especially on the West Coast. But I digress. Uh, as the smoke continues crossing the border in both directions, President Trump, like I said, this is a more lighthearted segment and more funny segment. President Trump placed part of the blame on Canada. The hubris of this man is absolutely positively hilarious. This man is a walking talking troll, and he's hilarious. He's very hilarious. So he's blaming Canada for the smoke. He says that Canada has failed to properly manage its forest. And I have to come back on the other side and say, Trump, so has California, and so has Oregon, and so has Washington State, so has the West Coast, and they fail it every single year. Every single year. So it's kind of funny that he's taking this approach, and kind of moronic at the same time, in my opinion, but it's still funny nonetheless. But he's saying that they are allowing their wildfires to grow larger and to burn longer and repeatedly impact American communities. So President Trump also is now stepping out and suggesting that the smoke could become a major part and factoring into the ongoing trade disputes that are between Canada and the United States, right? And he's warning that additional costs could be placed on Canada. This man is saying he's going to tariff the smoke from Canada. Yeah, he's going to tariff the smoke from Canada. His argument is straightforward. America shouldn't have to deal with reoccurring smoke events caused by poor forest management north of the border. Trump, the West Coast of Canada could have been saying this every single year. So it's funnier for me because this is something that can go both ways. But it's hilarious that this man has a downright perverse impudence to just lay this out there. He's like, listen, I'm going to tariff you on your smoke. You're smoking the place up. I'm tariffing the smoke, right? And he's adding another point of tension to an already strained relationship. So wildfire smoke doesn't recognize borders. It doesn't stop at customs and gets patted down to make sure it's not doing something wrong, and it's passport check to see why it's coming into the country. It doesn't wait for trade agreements. When forests burn, communities on both sides feel effects. The question now is whether this remains a environmental issue, or does it become a much larger political and economic debate? And I think more than likely it's going to become a larger economic debate. President Trump is signaling that the two countries may now, or signaling that the two may be connected. The two issues, the smoke and the economics. The balls on Trump, they're huge. If another country is country and their policies create repeated consequences for America, should those consequences become a part of trade negotiations? In some cases, I say yes. In others, I say no. I think for truth's sake that this is a little asinine. I think it's a little asinine. It's funny, but it's a little asinine. But the problem is there are people that support this. And they're saying that every nation has a responsibility to manage problems that spill across their borders. Now, this part right here. Every nation has responsibility to manage their own problems that spill across borders. Why isn't Israel managing their problems? Spilling across their border into America, crossing a whole ocean to do so? I'm gonna lay that out there. I want that question to resonate a little bit. I want it to burn into your psyche just a little bit, kind of like these fires are burning, right? Reminds me of that song. We didn't start the fire. It's always burning since the world's been turning. Yeah, Yeah, that song. Regardless of national policy, however, either way, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. Sometimes the bigger issue isn't between neighboring countries. Sometimes it's you know, the egos of those in those countries. And the biggest issue that is driving a wedge between these two countries is that America has been the patsy for years under multiple different under multiple different administrations. They've been the patsy for years under multiple different congressional years. They've been the patsy, and it's time that America says no to just doing what everybody else says. Everybody else is benefiting while Americans are suffering. You get to eat off of our fruits from our labor, but we get the short end of the stick. And I think that's where Trump's point of view is with this is, hey, we're just tired of cleaning up everything for everybody else. And I get it. I just think it's a little much with this particular topic here that you're going to tariff smoke. But if anyone could tariff smoke, it is this man. Nobody else is going to be able to do it. However, I think it's a little ridiculous. That's just my opinion. It's a little ridiculous. So, speaking of relationships between two nations, the next story isn't about conflict. It's about cooperation. Possibly, maybe. Yeah, it's some cooperation, but there might be some conflict. The United States has signed one of its most significant agreements with Saudi Arabia in years. And this one is called a new Middle East ally. It's kind of reminiscent of the video game where a fighting video game where it says a new challenger has arrived. Well, a new ally has arrived. The United States has signed a landmark civilian, pay attention to the language, a landmark civilian nuclear agreement with Saudi Arabia. The deal opens the door for America and American companies to help build the kingdom's civilian nuclear energy program. Wait a minute. We're nuclearizing Saudi Arabia? What? It is a partnership expected to last about 30 years. And unlike some previous agreements with other countries, this one leaves open possibilities for Saudi Arabia to eventually enrich uranium inside its own country instead of having us ship it in, right? Wait a minute. Saudi Arabia is in the Middle East. We're bombing a nation, Iran, for trying to enrich uranium. Saudi Arabia's a Muslim nation, and Iran's a Muslim nation. However, this is what we're doing. But they're only going to allow the country to enrich uranium if it's a joint U.S.-Saudi agreement. And they have to be able to determine if it's necessary in the first place. And only under American oversight, right? So administration officials say that this agreement strengthens America's position in the Middle East. Ding, 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 ding. Here is the key. Now, this particular key might be a skeleton key that could reach back and bite us, but here is the major key. It would give America more position in the Middle East, a stronger position. Now I'm going to take a step back, go off script a little bit. I thought Israel strengthened America's position in the Middle East. If Israel was doing such a great, fantastic, amazing job at being the strength for America in the Middle East, then why are we looking to strengthen it elsewhere? And why with nuclear enrichment? Huh? So I can see this little soiree going one of two ways. Again, I'm off script here. I'm off script. I'm not giving you story. I'm giving you my side of things. So you can differentiate the two. This can go one or two ways. One, this is going to piss Israel off to no end. and it's going to affect America and Israel's relationship greatly. Or two, if that NDAA revision passes, it would give Israel access to this nuclear program and all the technology that comes from it. Now, on the flip side, America says that this creates U.S. nuclear industry jobs, right? And helps prevent China and Russia from becoming Saudi Arabia's primary energy partners. That sounds nice. But on this show, we don't just look at what sounds nice. We don't talk about what glitters. See what I did there? Seeing is hearing, hearing is seeing. If you're paying attention, you'll keep up. We talk about the backside of things. The dark side of the moon that we never can see or go to. Civilian nuclear agreements aren't new. They haven't been ever. The United States has signed similar agreements with other countries over the years. But this one stands out for an important reason. The U.S. has signed, when the U.S. signed nuclear civilian agreements in the past with the UAE permanently agreed not to enrich uranium. Saudi Arabia is not. Instead, the agreement allows for the possibility of future uranium enrichment by their own hands. If both governments determine this is a necessary thing for civilian energy, not like they couldn't flip the switch and go somewhere else with it, and civilian production, right? Then the administration on both ends will allow it to happen. Be subject to international safeguards. I thought that the EAIA was a safeguard for Iran. How did that go? How'd that work out? Yeah, I'm just curious. I'm just asking questions. You got to ask questions. If you don't ask questions, you look dumb. And I'm not into looking dumb. So I ask questions. How did that EAIA work out for Iran? How did the JCPOA work out for Iran? And why does America get to determine who has nukes and who doesn't? These are just questions. I'm not saying I agree with or disagree with anything. Just asking questions. Because when asking questions, you get answers. But if you don't ask questions, you look dumb. You look real dumb. And our ding dong of the day, when we get to it, you'll see how dumb they look, in fact. Right? But before we get there, we have a beautiful story. Something that you wouldn't think would be the case, but is actually the case. We have, wait, wrong one. Let's go away. There we go. Iraq declares Christ, right? Iraq declares Christ. After years of seeing Christians leave the country, Iraq says it wants them to come home. Prime Minister Ali Falah al-Valdi, I'll butcher it again. Don't worry, I'll butcher it. Recently met with the Chaldean patriarch Mar Paul III Nona and declared that bringing Iraqi Christians back is now a national priority. I need y'all to just marinate on that just a wee bit. A Islamic Muslim nation, predominantly, is saying that Christians need to come back home because they are a national priority. They said some other things about it too. And it's shocking. All of it's shocking. So during the meeting, the prime minister called Christians a vital part of Iraq's history. Wow, shocking. He went on to say its identity, its future are a part of Christians, and Christians are a part of Iraq's future, right? He also pledged that the government, so most people would think, oh man, this is just smoke and mirrors. They're just doing this to kill off Christians, all these other things. Well, he went on to pledge that the government would support, AKA help, the Christian families resettle throughout the country. So they're going to give government help to get these people back, right? And the Iraqi government isn't just making a symbolic statement, it's offering incentives such as returning Christian families will receive administrative assistance, along with access to Iraq's 1 million residents plot program. So not only are they saying that they want them back, not only are they saying that these people are a part of their culture, a part of their history, and a part of who they are as a whole, the country. Now, keep in mind, this is a Muslim nation. I need you to understand this is a Muslim nation. It's saying this. They're also willing to give government help to get them home, government assistance, administrative assistance, aka like Social Security, stuff that we have here, to help them build themselves up. And alongside all of that, they're going to give them access to their 1 million residents plot. So they're giving them land. That's that mind-blowing. Absolutely, positively mind-blowing. Prime Minister Al-Valdi, I told you I was going to butcher it again, Valdi, also extended an invitation to Christian business owners. It's like a gift that keeps giving, right? Not just Christian business owners, but entrepreneurs that are Christians. Not just entrepreneurs that are Christians, investors living abroad that are Christian. His message was simple. Bring your business home. Bring your investments home. Help build Iraq. This man sounds like a Muslim version of Trump. It's what it sounds like. Actually, it doesn't sound Muslim at all. Doesn't sound Muslim at all. He is trying to do what Trump is trying to do for America, well, was in his first term. He's trying to do that with Iraq. He's trying to make Iraq a cohesive nation again. He wants to see Iraq flourish again. I guess you could say he's trying to make Iraq great again, right? At least that's what it seems like. And this man is making these large proposals, and he's meeting with other leaders in the area of Iraq and other countries outside of Iraq and saying, hey, how can we do this? He wants to create opportunities for employment. It just keeps getting better. And help returning families establish themselves once again. The announcement comes after decades of war, extremist violence, and religious persecution. That was the cause of the dramatic exodus of Iraq in the first place. Specifically the Christians. And this is crazy. This is 2 weeks in a row I've given you stories where Muslims are helping Christians and not hurting them, as we are continuously thought to believe and told to believe. You had communities in Iraq for years, Christian communities that existed for nearly 2,000 years that were forced to flee, leaving behind churches, businesses, and entire neighborhoods. This story goes far beyond economics. It's about identity. When Prime Minister Al-Valdi, or Valdi, I'm going to keep butchering it, said Christians are part of Iraq's history, identity, and their future, he acknowledged something many nations eventually discover. A country's strength isn't measured only by its economy or military. It's also measured by the people who helped build it. Can't forget that. And it seems like the federal government in the United States has forgotten that. Without us, there would be no federal government. There wouldn't be. Without us, there would be no great America. Without us, there would be no great American military. It's crazy. And for centuries, Christians have been a part of Iraq's culture and their education and their religious traditions. And what's crazy is the further I look into these, because I love the fact that this show is about America. That's what I stand on. But it's also Christ-centered, Christ-focused over all. That's why we start with prayer and we end with Christ. But it's crazy to me that we are spoon-fed so many lies, not even untruths, lies about other nations. When you think of Africa, what's the first thing that pops in your head? Desert, jungle, loincloths, spears, chasing animals. Because that's what we're taught. When we think of the Middle East, what do we think about? Desert, people on camels, smelling because they're sweating and all these clothes and all this other stuff. People eating with their hands and in street markets and stuff like that. That's what we're sold. But if you go look at some of these nations, they have some of the most beautiful cities you've ever seen that make American cities look horrible. I always tell people to draw a comparison. Look at Detroit, Michigan, pre-World War II. Look at Hiroshima, Nagasaki, pre-World War II. Then look at Nagasaki, Hiroshima, after they had 2 suns dropped on them. Then fast forward to 2026. Look at these places now. Detroit, Michigan. Hellhole. You could barely walk up and down the streets there. I've seen it. Been there. Not great. Whereas if you look at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 2 places that were decimated, absolute meccas. Absolute meccas. And that's what Detroit, Michigan used to be, an industrial mecca amongst the world. We have fallen so far from grace with the moves that we make. And it's because we keep pushing God out and putting man in and man's agenda in. If we want things to get better, we have to expect and want better. Otherwise, we will never be better. Now we're going to move on to our ding dong of the day. And then we're going to close out with a cultural critique rant, right? Our ding dong of the day is self-explanatory, but we're going to slide over here to look down the road. This is Representative Jim Jordan. And these things don't need much fervor behind what I'm going to say, because we can say it as it's written. Jim Jordan tweeted, "We fly the American flag in America." And then readers of this added context from Grok. Representative Jim Jordan has an Israeli flag outside of his office door. So my team did some research, and sure enough, he does. Now ask yourself, how can you love America, be for America, push for America, but stand with someone else? The Bible says, how can two walk together unless they agree? How many people in America want to be in war right now? How many people in America want to lose family right now? Brothers, sisters. And I hear it now, oh, well, they signed up for it. Well, if they didn't sign up for it, you could be speaking German right now. So be thankful. But if I say I am for America, America first, MAGA, make America great again, if I say that, you're not going to see me flying any other flags at all, period. Not Ukrainian flags, not Palestinian flags, not Venezuelan flags, not Mexican flags, not Israeli flags, just America. And this is not a knock against Israel at all. This is a knock against the fact that we have individuals sitting in office that are proclaiming to be pro-America, that have allegiances and alliances in other places. God rest Lindsey Graham's soul, but that man had a hard-on for Ukraine. That man was all for legislation sending money to Ukraine, but couldn't pass the SAVE Act. You know, the act that would shore up our voting. Couldn't pass that. Couldn't say yay on that. Couldn't even push John Thune to push that through. But you sure could push to have money sent to Ukraine and Israel. Boy, you were deep in President Trump's ear about sending money to Israel. You were deep in the ear of Biden about giving Ukraine money, not like you really needed to help the Democrats there. They love giving other countries money. But you can't say you are America first and stand next to anything else. There should be no other flags in the halls of Congress, in the offices of Congress, period. I do not care if your lineage comes from Mexico, your mom was from Mexico, that you're a citizen that got pooped out, and because of that, you got birthright citizenship. That was a failure on the part of the Supreme Court, but also a failure on the Trump administration for arguing it wrong. But I digress. You can't say you're pro-America and have any other flag beside an American flag. In my opinion, again, separating my opinion from everyone else's and from the show, this is the opinion of Frankie, not the host of the podcast. Shouldn't be a flag beside it, under it, above it, around it. It should be the only flag that you see for miles. The stars and the stripe, the red, white, and blue. Most people don't even know how many stars are on the flag. Others don't even know what the stripes stand for or the colors stand for. So that's your homework for next week. Tell me what those mean. What does it stand for? Because I stand with Christ and America. Not Israel, not Ukraine, not Palestine, not Mexico, not Venezuela, not Cuba, not Canada, not any country that we have a problem with or an issue with or think that they need money. None. It's all America or nothing at all. And if you ask anyone in any other country how they feel about their country and they are truly patriotic or show patriotism for their nation, they're going to say the same thing. And they would call you dumb for saying anything else. Congratulations, Jim Jordan. You played yourself. Stop tweeting stuff when the opposite is next to that. Because if we fly America flags in America, it should be American flags only. And I can hear the people now, oh, well, he didn't say only American flags. It should be only American flags. Anything else is an insult. Anything else is an insult. Now, onto our cultural critique to close the show. This cultural critique is called Doom Scroll Generation. We live in a culture that scrolls more than it studies, right? Think about it. Most people can spend 3 hours scrolling through short videos and barely remember what they watched the next day. But sit down with a good book for 30 minutes, and those ideas have way more sticking power with you. Reading demands that you do something beyond scrolling, right? It demands your attention. And when you read, your mind has to slow down. It has to imagine. It has to process. It has to question. It has to connect ideas. You're not just consuming information. You are engaging with the information. That's why people often remember what they read far longer than what they passively scrolled past. Oh, look at the funny cat video. Oh, funny cats. It takes less energy to consume a video. Our culture has traded page turning for doom scrolling. We've become addicted to the next click, the next headline, the next notification. We consume thousands of pieces of content every week, yet many of us struggle to recall what we saw yesterday. That's not because we are getting dumber. It's because we're being trained. And in that training, our brains are being trained to move before anything has time to take root. The microwave generation, if you will. But this is a doom scrolling generation. Knowledge isn't built at 1 15-second clip at a time. Wisdom takes time. Reflection takes time. Growth takes time. Maybe that's one of the greatest cultural shifts of our generation. We've mistaken content consumption for learning. Reading slows you down enough to think. Scrolling speeds you up enough to stop thinking. If we've ever wanted to get wiser or become a wiser society, maybe the answer isn't an app. Maybe it's not the algorithm, but maybe it's just picking up a book and putting down the phone. I'm your host, American Lumberjack, and this is Timber Talk. I'll see you next Thursday.